meaning?
The current church leadership is located at Scientology headquarters in Los Angeles. We wanted to know what they had to say. And the Scientologists, although unhappy with our report in 1980, finally agreed to an interview. But this time, the Scientologists, convinced that we were out to attack their church, arranged for several of their videotape cameras to be trained on us at all times during the session. Church president, the Reverend Heber Jensch, had his attorney Earl Cooley sitting at his side throughout the interview. And almost 100 Scientologists were called in as witnesses.
Scientology is the only road to total freedom. Whether you agree with it or not, that is the truth. And he has outlined a way to do it.
The only road to total freedom. Really, the only road?
I said the only road to total freedom.
Yes. What does that mean? Only road to total freedom.
Oh, there's some word there you don't understand?
I don't understand the concept. I mean, what kind of freedom are we talking about?
Spiritual freedom.
And as for the founder, L. Ron Hubbard,
I think he's probably one of the greatest men that ever lived. I think that what you see and hear all through this place are recognitions for what he has done in the area of drug rehabilitation, what he has done in the areas of education, the recognition of cities and mayors and governors and so forth, and individuals whose lives have been changed.
But if Hubbard is a man of enlightenment, he is also a man who appears obsessed with his perceived enemies. Attack the attacker, he writes. If Scientology is attacked on some vulnerable point, always find or manufacture enough threat to cause them to sue for peace. Always attack, don't ever defend. According to former church members, it is writing like that which inspired bizarre plots like the ones against Paulette Cooper and numerous others. But when I put some of that to the Reverend Jensch, he accused us of coming to the defense of Scientology's enemies.
We'd say when Pearl Harbor happened, you'd be the first guy going over there to represent the Japanese because he probably bruised his knee when he killed all those Americans. You say, oh, don't attack the attacker. Well, they're just trying to wipe you out, you know. Just about the poor Japanese army, they probably flew 3,000 miles off course. Mike Wallace, that's great. That's real great rhetoric.
Then the Reverend Jensch turned to the scriptures to try to convince us that we were taking things out of context.
The Torah has said, if one comes to kill you, rise up and kill him first. But let's go further. The Torah decrees, if he come to slay thee, forestall by slaying him. Let's go to Exodus 2:11-14. When Moses had grown up, he went out to his kinfolk and witnessed their toil. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. He struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Now, I can just take it and turn it back to you and say, you're a Jew. How do you respond to this thing? I don't think that's fair. I think that is a despicable activity by anyone to take it out of context. And I can go through the whole Bible and lift it out and make it look just as crazy, just as weird as you're trying to do here with millions and millions of words in print in a religion, and you can take out 2 words or you can take out a sentence and you can somehow try to bring it down to that.
In the course of reporting this story, it became apparent to us that the Reverend Jensch is persuaded that 60 Minutes itself is somehow involved with others in a plot to destroy Scientology.
You may not like our religion. You may try to castigate it. You may try to denigrate it. You may try to bring down the image of Mr. Hubbard, but you cannot change what has happened in the hearts and minds of every single Scientologist who has had benefit from this man and what he's done.
And
we're here. You know, we're here for all the centuries to come. All the centuries to come. Apparently, 60 Minutes disappears and the electrons are erased off of the tapes. We'll still be here.
Everyone who has taken these courses come out with a superego and with a truculent, if you will, a truculent view of anyone who dares disagree. Because the person who disagrees is perceived as what they call a suppressive person,
an enemy,
and must be dealt with as such.
And that's the gospel according to L. Ron Hubbard.
That's the dark side of Scientology.
Omar Garrison set out to write the Hubbard biography. According to church legend, Hubbard is a man of extraordinary accomplishment. But Garrison says that he has learned there is less to Hubbard than has been painted over the years in church literature.
He fought in 5 theaters in World War II.
Not true.
He commanded a squadron of corvettes.
Not true.
He was crippled and blinded in war.
Not true.
He was the first casualty of the war.
Not true.
Flown home in the Secretary of Navy's private plane.
Not true.
Are you aware of the fact that there are more than one set of military records on Mr. Hubbard?
Church attorney Earl Cooley says that the official military records on L. Ron Hubbard are actually fakes.
that his records, his military records, have been doctored. Are you aware of that?
By
God knows whom.
But there is more.
Is he an atomic or nuclear physicist?
Of course not.
Did he travel with Tibetan bandits?
I have no documentation and have never seen any in an extensive research that he did.
Legend, rumor, grows up around any charismatic leader, any leader in the world, and particularly any religious leader.
Attorney O'Cooley says that if anyone exaggerated the credentials of the founder, it was overzealous Scientologists and not the man himself.
And if he were to spend his time attempting to refute every allegation made against him, good and bad, he would have no time to write the technology and to develop the philosophy that has helped millions and millions of people.
And has made millions and millions of dollars for L. Ron Hubbard, according to this man, Homer Schomer, who testified in court that as treasurer for a company called Author Services Incorporated in Los Angeles, he secretly channeled a fortune into the private overseas bank accounts of L. Ron Hubbard.
His weekly income went from about $200,000 to up over $1 million per week.
L. Ron Hubbard himself was making $1 million a week.
That's correct.
In 1982?
Right. And most of the money was coming out of the church.
Schomer says the company he worked for billed the Church of Scientology for Hubbard's past research, and that the money was then transferred into Swiss bank accounts. This despite public claims that Hubbard made only a paltry living from Scientology.
And you knew this for a fact because you took part in the switching, if you will, of these funds to Switzerland?
Right. Plus, I'd have the bank records that, the transfer receipts from the banks that money would be transferred.
What about the credibility of Homer Schomer and the other former Scientologists who are now speaking out? The Scientologists claim that those former church members were purged from the church, in effect thrown out, after an internal power struggle. According to the church leaders, they are all disgruntled and have personal gripes. And so, the church says, they are lying. But Sullivan, Schomer, Garrison, and others have all been called as witnesses in court about their experiences with Scientology. And I quoted to the Reverend Judge the words of the California Superior Court Judge Paul Breckenridge, who presided over one of those cases in which the Scientologists were embroiled. In that case, the Scientologists did not testify to all they told us in this report. Still, Judge Breckenridge found Sullivan, Schomer, and Garrison to be extremely persuasive, to be credible witnesses. And I read further from the judge's opinion.
The organization is clearly schizophrenic and paranoid, and this bizarre combination seems to be a reflection of its founder, LRH. The evidence portrays a man who has been virtually a pathological liar when it comes to his history, background, and achievements.
The Reverend Gent says that he has investigated what was the basis for the judge's decision.
I traced back where that came from, this whole schizophrenic paranoia concept that he has. It came from Interpol. At that time, the president of Interpol was a former SS officer, Paul Dickoff. And to find that Judge Breckenridge quoted a Nazi SS officer as the authority on Scientology, I find unconscionable. You may support it. I can't support that in any way, shape, or form.
The church continues to protest. It is misunderstood, the object of unfair attacks. Meantime, loyal Scientologists swear that they continue to find salvation in Hubbard's philosophy, that man can help himself, that man can reach a state of clear.
From sea to shining sea.